Welcome to Caffeinated Flicks. I'm Celeste.
And I'm Kenzie. We're two chicks who drink coffee
and celebrate flicks from diverse directors.
If you like what you're hearing so far, take a moment to follow us in your favorite podcasting app.
And give us a rating or review. Here's the show.
I have hair in my mouth.
What happened?
I'm petting Tiny, and some of her cat hair flew into my mouth, which is the best part about being a pet parent.
Yep.
All right. Shall we?
Yes, let's shall.
Let's shall. How are you today?
What was that?
I said, how are you today?
I'm good. I took a shower longer than I was hoping, as usual. The other day I had to shower really quick, and Billy's like, yeah, you don't know how to shower quick.
To be fair, this may be a TMI, but do you wash your hair every time that you shower?
Yes.
Okay, that's why, because you have so much flippin' hair.
No, that's not why.
It's not why? You're like, I was trying to give you an out.
I have my own little concerts. I make up like scenarios in my head where I should have said something.
You just get lost in your own little water world.
I do.
Oh, speaking of little concerts, so I need you to explain something to me.
Okay.
So I saw earlier this week that everybody was going like ape shit over Taylor Swift's 1989 album or something like that. Why? Like, is it a new album? Did it just come out? Like, I'm very confused.
So you know how she's re-recording all of her old albums so that way she owns her music. And that was the re-release of her 1989 album.
Okay. I was trying to figure it out because I had seen many people post about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is why? I'm very confused. Yeah. I don't understand. I'm not in the zeitgeist.
That is why. And with all of her re-recordings, she's adding like songs from her vault. So technically, it's almost like we're getting a new album. But
gotcha.
Now she
reminds me of how, like, I don't know, a decade ago, Disney had like the Disney Vault.
Oh, yes.
They're like, it's the 25th anniversary release. And then after this, it's going back into the vault.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Except it was the same stuff. Like it was nothing new. So I don't know why it was a vault, like to make it more appealing and interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. You have to create that air of limited options or urgency.
Get the people to want it. But yeah, so it was a very exciting day.
I do. So are you doing anything today? Because I know that we're in a bit of a time crunch. Yeah.
That's okay. Right afterwards, we're going, Jade and her friend, Emily, who listens to this sometimes. So shout out to Emily. But we're going to the farmer's market after this because we've been trying to make plans and we've had to reschedule. So it's finally happening.
Which farmer's market?
I have no idea, but there are two that are open today. I think one's in Anthem and then another one elsewhere. I'm not really sure.
Because I need to go get some coffee for our lovely guests. So I haven't done that yet. And so I'm like, I need to go.
Yes. Didn't you get a lot of your coffee from, doesn't AJ sell some local coffee?
Oh, I've never gone to AJ's to get coffee, but they do sell local coffee. Yeah. Oh. I have before, like when we've gone, just not recently. Like, I don't know, probably within the last year or no.
It's been a hot minute since we've been at AJ's.
Oh my gosh. So we need to have an AJ's date. We need to make this happen. But that sounds like fun. That should be a good time.
I'm excited. And the weather's finally nice.
I know.
I was looking. I'm like, ooh, am I going to wear a long sleeve today? Like, it's looking like
a light 70. Sweater.
I know. Is it finally sweater weather? I'm so excited.
I know. And just in time for the very end of October.
Right. Technically, November's still fall. So.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, everywhere else in the country has already been experiencing fall for the last several weeks at least. And we're at the end of the game here.
Yeah. I was just talking with a coworker, though, that's from, she's from Illinois. And so she's like, yeah, I would never move back. I don't want a winter. And I'm like, yeah, I used to wish that I lived somewhere with seasons. Because we have like one season and then a few months out of the year, it's chilly.
Right.
I don't want to live in a winter. I don't want to experience that. So I'm okay with this.
I want seasons. I love trees. I love colors. I love seasons. I love long sleeves. I wear long sleeves all the time. As long and as often as I can.
I love seeing it, but the winters don't seem worth it to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't drive. Like, winter clothes to us is like cute long sleeves, booties, jeans, but real winter clothes ain't cute, especially on someone
They're
who's
not.
short and stubby.
No, you look like the same stuffed marshmallow man.
So no, I'm okay. Shoveling snow, I don't want to be there. No.
My thing is that I especially have realized in my recent travels is as long as my feet are not wet and cold, I'm good.
Oh yeah.
So I need to get some like waterproof shoes.
Good quality water boots. Yep.
Yeah. So what are you caffeinating with today?
Nothing. Water. That's what I have right now.
How dare you?
Yeah, I know. To be fair, I normally do coffee mid-morning.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah. And this is like the earliest we've recorded. I meant to make like a decaf coffee in a pot. That's how I make it. In a little pot.
Hot coffee? Who are you?
I know. It's starting getting chilly enough. But yeah, I meant to make a decaf one, but yeah, as we know, I ran out of time.
Aw. Well, I did make a pot of coffee.
Yum.
So our friend of the pod, Kevy Fly from Anhedonic Headphones Podcast and A Reasonable Day, him and I recorded an episode for his Anhedonic Headphones Podcast, and he sent me some coffee. And so I'm drinking some of the coffee that he had sent me. I believe the brand is called Just, and it's from Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. And it's a Honduras blend.
Oh, my God.
But it's pretty good. It's really mellow.
Awesome.
So shout out to Kevin Krein.
That was sweet of him.
So are we ready to get into our movie today? Our finale of this Halloween season?
Finally. I'm so ready to be done.
I'm never ready to be done.
Billy and I were watching it yesterday. He's like, is this your last horror movie? I'm like, yes, thank God. I'm over it.
Oh, man. So today we're watching 2017 It. So what is your history with It? Maybe this movie, if nothing else, the entire like movie franchise of this variety.
So I'm going to go back to the original. So I watched that. Technically, I didn't watch it because I was too scared. So I was at a slumber party and they decided to put that on like right before we all went to bed. But it was as like all the girls were falling asleep, which I feel like is a terrible idea to put on a horror movie. I was too scared to watch it, so I pretended like I fell asleep.
That sounds right up your alley.
I've seen the original. I've seen like bits and pieces of the beginning, but never the whole thing.
To be fair, the whole thing is, I think, 3 or 4 hours long if you watch both.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah. If you watch both, because it technically isn't like a film release, it's a TV movie. So they did it in 2 parts. And if you watch both parts, it's like 4 hours long.
Oh my God. I didn't know that. There's just a regular old movie. Cool.
Yeah. I, much like you, had not seen this most recent version until recently when we were doing it for the podcast. But I did also grow up with the TV movie with Tim Curry as Pennywise, which I'll talk a little bit about as we go through the movie, some of like the differences and some of the adaptations and whatnot. And especially since in preparing for this, I had seen that on Amazon, I think it was, they had like a documentary about the filming of the I think it's 1990. Yeah, 1990. The internet lists it as a drama miniseries. So,
What?
but yeah, so I watched. Okay, it is 3 hours and 12 minutes in total. That's how long it is.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so I watched like a documentary on the making of it and like specifically Pennywise and Tim Curry's character and how they developed that and so on and so forth. So
That it was a made for TV movie and it gained like so much success. Like that never happens with movies that are made for TV. Like how crazy. Wow. And then for the 2017 one, I did see in theaters.
Oh, you saw it in theaters?
Yes, I did see it when it came out. And I was very impressed. I thought it was really good. I thought it was terrifying. So, but other than that, I don't have like, it was a one and done for me. I didn't need to watch it.
Did you watch the second one?
I did watch it because I'm a huge Jessica Chastain fan.
I know. When I saw that she was in there, I was like, damn.
The Irish guy, his name I can't think of right now. From Split? What is his name?
Oh, yeah.
James McAvoy.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, James McAvoy.
And then that funny guy. I can't think of anybody's names right now.
Bill Hader is the one that you're talking about.
There you go.
James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain. Stephen King makes an appearance in that one.
I remember like when the movie came out, because of course, like it came during like the time of social media. And there were a bunch of memes about the character who plays the clown, who plays it, and how the actor is like a very conventionally attractive man.
Right.
And so people were making jokes and they're like, oh, if that's what he looks like, put me down that sewer. People were like making memes about like going down the sewer because he's a pretty good looking
That sounds about right.
Yeah. That's the internet for you.
Right. And Bill Skarsgård, who plays Pennywise, who you're referring to, he's like
comes from a family. Like they're oh my gosh,
an actor family.
What is his name? Oh my goodness.
Two shakes of a lamb's tail here. Let's see. Bill Skarsgård. He's Swedish. Huh, that makes sense. I didn't like
Does it?
I knew that he was some kind of Scandinavian by his he isn't a lot. Like
John.
But I didn't know that he was actually like from Sweden. Let's see. If I look for family,
so his
parents.
brother he was in the Lady Gaga paparazzi video.
Oh wow. Like Alexander Skarsgård, I think is probably the most famous. Yeah. His IMDb is him without pants.
Alexander Skarsgård? That makes sense. Yeah.
It's him without pants, but he's got like a tuxedo top on. That's so weird.
That makes sense.
Stellan Skarsgård. He's the one in Mamma Mia.
There you go. Yes.
Stellan Skarsgård. Yeah. He was also in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
He's in a lot. Yeah. He's very well known.
He runs the gamut for what he can act in. Runs the gamut.
What does that mean?
It means like he can do like a whole wide variety from like horror to comedy to he runs the whole thing. So romantic lead. So yeah. Anyway, shall we get back to it?
Yeah, the actual went on a little tangent. That's okay.
All right. It from 2017, the actual film piece was directed by Andy Muschietti, and he was born on August 26th, and he's a Virgo.
Oh.
I would not have guessed that. But as you mentioned, he was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and he's a producer and director. He's known obviously for the It franchise, both 1 and 2, but he's also directed Mama, which is another horror movie. And he and his sister actually produce these movies together because his sister is often a writer and producer, Barbara Muschietti. So they work on things together. And they both actually studied at the Universidad del Cine in San Telmo, Buenos Aires. And he was 39 years old when he directed his first film. So it goes to show, like, you don't have to get everything done in your 20s.
Never too late to pursue your dreams. Love it.
And speaking of some of his other films that he's done, he's only the second Latino director to ever direct a comic book movie, because he directed The Flash in 2022. And Guillermo del Toro, who we've talked about previously, directed Blade 2 in 2002. So 20 years later.
Oh. Wow.
So this is one of the few directors who, for whatever reason, we don't have a whole lot of information on. But in some of his interviews, he did say that Stephen King is a literary hero of his and has really influenced his art. So we can definitely see that in the fact that, one, he did it, but two, the horror genre, the suspense genre that he gravitates to. So
Cool.
So we've mentioned a lot of the cast already, but we have Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. We have Jaden Martell, who plays Bill, who's one of the main protagonists. This movie has 7 children who are the main protagonists, and Bill is probably the one that we know the most about as far as his family life is concerned. And then we've got Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things fame, who plays Richie. Jack Dylan Grazer plays Eddie. Jeremy Ray Taylor plays Ben. Wyatt Oleff plays Stanley. Jackson Robert Scott, who is also well known in the series Lock and Key on Netflix, plays Georgie. Nicholas Hamlet plays a bully in this movie. His name is Henry. Chosen Jacobs plays Mike. And then Sophia Lilith plays Beverly, who is the only female protagonist, or really female character in this movie. And she's the one, the character who we know probably the second most about from her home life going forward. So that's our main cast. We have a couple of others, but those are the ones that we'll be talking about the most. And as a fun little bit of trivia, Jackson Robert Scott, who plays Georgie, is the youngest member in the movie, and stated that he wasn't actually scared of Pennywise as he thought he would be. He said that he actually had a fun time doing his scenes, and that Bill Skarsgård was always joking around with him.
I couldn't. I was watching it and I'm like, I could not act. Like, I would truly be terrified. I don't know how these children did it.
Oh my, that's so fun. What's funny is, like, so as I mentioned, I watched that documentary about the making of it, and Seth Green, the really well-known actor, like, that was one of his first film roles, is he was in the original It. And so he was talking in the documentary, and so many of the other characters were talking about, like, how Tim Curry basically never broke character when they were around, other than occasionally smoking a cigarette. So you just see this clown smoking a cigarette.
Is that breaking character, though?
More terrifying than lung cancer. Who knows?
Right.
So shall we get into the ratings?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Do you want to do the 10 out of 10?
Yes. Alrighty, so 10 out of 10, the It Factor. I had the pleasure of seeing an advanced screening of It in Brisbane. The film is absolutely brilliant. Bill Skarsgård has taken Pennywise and made the role his own. Creepy, disturbing, humorous, It really possesses the creep factor, giving audiences a new reason to fear clowns. The entire casting choices were sensational. All actors really held their own, creating a sense of camaraderie between the characters. Like most people, I do hold the miniseries with Tim Curry close to my heart, but after seeing this adaptation, I was beyond pleasantly surprised. So much so that upon it being released into cinemas, I'll be back in line to see it again.
That was a very good one. So 1 out of 10, worst horror movie I've seen. I'm at a loss at how this rated 7+ on IMDb. Background, I've never seen any prior show/book related to this movie. I heard chatter about it when it came out and saw the decent rating on here. So when it showed up on Netflix, I decided to give it a watch. Bottom line, this is probably the worst horror movie I've ever seen. What audience is this horror movie made for? 13-year-olds? Everything rapidly falls apart after the opening scene, and there is no redeeming qualities to be found afterwards. I'd say Stranger Things is more of a horror movie than this.
Wow.
What's really funny is actually Stranger Things took some
It went dark.
inspiration from it.
Did it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Season 4 of Horror Things. No, Horror Things of Stranger Things. Was that the last one?
I think that was one? No, I think we're on season 5 right now. Like they're doing the second release or something like that.
Oh yeah, the second part.
Oh no, okay. You're right. It's season 4.
Okay.
But yes, we are in they're going to be doing the second half here soon-ish.
Yeah, all depends on when the strike ends. But the last, like the most recent season was actually scary. It was giving a lot of Freddy Krueger vibes.
Yes, very much so. Like traditional horror movie vibes.
Yes. So,
well, should we get into the movie then?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. So, if you know anything about Stephen King, all of his pieces take place somewhere in Maine because he's from Maine. Okay. So, we open up on the movie. It's raining. We're in Derry, Maine. And we close in on a house where we've got a sick tween boy named Bill and his younger brother, Georgie. Bill has been throwing up all morning and he's really sick, but Georgie really wants him to play with him, but he's like, no, I can't go outside. So he's folding up a paper boat and he tells Georgie to go to the basement to grab some wax so that way he can make the boat waterproof. So Georgie runs down to the basement, which is, in my opinion, always the first mistake. I have a rule. Some of my rules in life are never go to basements, never go into attics. But anyway, that's where this wax is held, apparently. So Georgie's in the basement. He's getting creeped out. He finds the wax and he runs upstairs. Luckily, nothing happened to him at that time. So Bill puts the wax on the boat and he's telling Georgie that you refer to boats as she. And then Georgie runs out into the rain to watch his boat float down the streams of water along the street. So Georgie is splashing and jumping in puddles, much like any, like maybe 8-year-old would. And he's having the time of his life until he runs straight into a hurdle. There are these street signs out because they're doing some kind of construction, and he runs straight into it, falls backwards, and the boat gets away from him. All of a sudden, the boat, he's chasing after it, but he can't get to it before it goes down the sewer drain. He's looking for his boat, and then all of a sudden in the darkness, a bright pair of yellow eyes flashes, and then here we see the iconic Pennywise from this movie. Georgie says that he shouldn't be talking to strangers and that he can't take his boat back because he doesn't know him, and so then Pennywise introduces himself as the dancing clown Pennywise and asks Georgie if he wants his boat back. So Pennywise and Georgie make a couple of jokes. They laugh a bit while they're talking about the circus and popcorn and how popcorn goes pop, pop, pop. And then at the end, Georgie's like, well, I should probably get going. But Pennywise is like, wait, don't you want your boat back? So Georgie sticks his hand in to reach for his boat. And then, much like a snake, Pennywise retracts his jaw, exposes rows and rows of very sharp teeth, and bites Georgie's arm off. Here, Georgie falls over. He's screaming, he's crying, he's crawling away. But Pennywise grabs him by his feet and pulls him into the sewer. And that is the end of Georgie.
Oh my gosh. I remember seeing that in theaters. I was so shocked. Because I had no idea. I knew something bad was probably going to happen to that kid, but that was shocking. I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. So this was supposed to be shown originally in the 1990 It drama series, but they had decided it was too violent, so they took it out. They cut it from the movie itself.
Oh my gosh. And then, so I don't know if you mentioned it, but there's like an old lady
Oh, yeah.
Right in front. That's like, so he's right in front of her house. So she saw him looking down in a drain. Then she leaves and then she comes back and she sees all the blood going down the sewer. And then she just walks away. I'm like, what?
She's like, none of my business.
I know.
Fine.
Right? I'm like, oh my gosh. But
I know.
it was
So we get text on screen as we do a flyover of the town of Derry, and we know that it is now June 1989. We zoom into a farmhouse where we have a black boy who's Mike. He's in the farmhouse and he's supposed to use a bolt gun to kill the sheep. He can't do it. So his grandpa then berates him about he needs to take more responsibility. And Mike's like, I have been taking responsibility. I'm doing the things that I have to do. And basically, they have a disagreement. The next, we see that school is letting out for the summer, and we meet 4 of our 7 protagonists. This is the main group of boys before they start adding on people. So we've got Stan, Richie, Bill, and Ed. They're all friends from a very long time. They've been going to school together for a very long time. We know that Stan is supposed to be turning 13 soon and having his bar mitzvah. And they have some fun banter about what a bar mitzvah actually is. They have confused it with a bris, which is where baby boys get circumcised. So Stan explains, no, at a bar mitzvah, I read from the Torah and then I become a man suddenly. They pass a girl's bathroom where a girl storms into the restrooms and is yelling and berating another girl within the bathroom stall, calling her a slut, calling her an idiot. And then her and her friends pour garbage juice all over her.
Yeah.
But this is our female protagonist, Beverly.
Do you remember kids being so mean and angry like that in elementary school? Because I don't.
I don't know. I kept to myself a lot. So
yeah, same. But I'm like, oh my gosh, who are these people? Who hurt you?
I know. So as the boys walk outside of the school, we see that there is a sign that says that there's a 7 p.m. curfew for the whole town enforced by the police. So that's important to know that clearly something's not right with the town. Outside, the boys dump their backpacks into the garbage and they talk about what their plans for the summer are. But then they see the police outside of the school and a mother, and they talk about a girl who is missing. Then a pack of bullies led by head bully Henry come and give our pack of boys some hell before heading out. And this is where we find out that Henry's dad is a police officer, because right as Henry's about to shake them up some, his dad gives him a stern look and then Henry takes off. Bill tells Henry that he sucks. And this is where we really find out that Bill has a stutter. And Henry turns around and says, look, you've had it easy this last year because of your brother dying, but going forward, it's not going to be so easy for you. So next, we're introduced to the new guy, Ben. Beverly runs into him outside of the school and tells him that Henry and the other bullies are on the other side of the school. They introduce themselves to each other, and Beverly takes his yearbook and signs it because apparently nobody else has.
And apparently he's a big New Kids on the Block fan.
Yeah, they make good jokes about that because he's wearing headphones, presumably from a Walkman, and is listening to New Kids on the Block. And he's like, oh, no, I'm not a big fan. It's just, So he instantly falls in love with Beverly, and much like most of these boys will.
Mm-hmm.
So
she's like so beautiful.
She's like, so cute. I love her.
Such a cute girl. Yeah.
I know. I'm so sad for what she endures in this movie that we will talk about. So she heads out and Ben awkwardly staggers away. Bill goes home and he sees his dad in the garage, and his dad's very upset because he's hard hit with grief over Georgie. And Bill cannot believe or really accept that Georgie's gone. So Bill is constantly trying to figure out where Georgie could have gone. He knows that he went into the sewers, so he's been trying to map out the sewer system and understand where Georgie might have ended up. So he has taken a bunch of these like PVC pipes and rigged them all together to represent the sewer system. And his dad is annoyed by this. And Bill says, no, let me show you. And so he takes like a ball, he throws it down the pipes and shows him, oh, Georgie probably ended up in the Barrens. And his dad says, just stop. Georgie is gone. Just stop. Your mother can't take this anymore. I can't take this anymore. And stop taking my things without asking.
Oh. And then, so the pipes belonged to their
hamster,
little pet,
I think.
or hamster, yeah. Because afterwards, he's like, I guess you can have your pipes back. Poor little hamster, all it had was a wheel this whole time.
We cut to Mike biking down into the town, and it looks like he's probably taking like lamb meat to the butcher. Right as he gets outside of the butcher, he sees Henry and his gang of bullies, and he suddenly ducks into the alley. That's when, behind the butcher shop, the back door begins to rattle, and he suddenly hears some screaming and burnt hands come through the edges of the door. And right after he's fallen to the ground in shock, the door busts open, and far into the dark hallway, we see a vague outline of a clown. All of a sudden, the bullies come crashing through the alley in their car, almost running him down. They drive off, and then the butcher comes out as they drive away, and he asks if Mike is all right. And that's about the extent of that scene. We then see Stan is studying the Torah. He's preparing for his bar mitzvah, and his dad is the rabbi. And he's just not doing so hot with this. His dad berates him and tells him that he hasn't been studying the Torah, so he needs to go put it away because obviously he's not taking it seriously. And so Stan goes into his father's office, and as he's doing that, there's a weird painting on the wall, and it's of like a distorted lady. It's very Scream-esque from Edvard Munch. But Stan puts his hand up to try and block it out. He puts a book on the shelf, and he hears a bang. All of a sudden, he sees that the painting has fallen off the wall. He goes to put it back up, and then notices that the figure within the painting has completely vanished.
These kids are so brave. If there was a painting in my house that I was terrified of and it fell, I'm out of there. I'm booking it. I'm not running, trying to be responsible and pick it up. No, I'm out of here.
So there's a clattering behind him, and out of the shadows, the distorted figure from the painting walks forward. And Stan takes off like a bat out of hell. We then cut to Ed's house. Ed apparently lives with his mother, who is very overbearing, and we get the idea or the sense later on in the movie that he's suffering from Munchausen's by proxy because she constantly makes him seem like he's sick. She tries to convince him that he's not well and that he's very susceptible to all sorts of viruses and disease. But at the house, Stan and Richie are there. They're trying to talk Ed into going with them. And so they finally get him to leave. And the boys are all riding their bikes through the town. We see that Ben, later on, is hanging out in the library, and he writes Bev a secret admirer postcard. It says something along the lines of amber hair, January embers, this is where my heart remains, or something of that nature. Did you ever receive any secret admirer stuff?
No. I was a loser.
I didn't either. So.
Did you?
We're just not that captivating.
Apparently I wasn't admirable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky if I got those Valentine's Day, any Valentines on.
Right?
Back when it was a requirement to give it to everybody. Or when it wasn't a requirement to give to everybody, actually.
Right. I think in like middle school, it stops being a requirement to give to everybody.
Yeah.
So the librarian slaps a book down on the table right as he finishes his letter, and she tells him that it's summer. He shouldn't be in the library. He should be outside playing with his friends, but he says that he doesn't have any, and he gets to reading. As he's flipping through the pages of this book, there's an image of a tree in the city, in the village area, something of that nature. And as he flips from page to page, we see that the image is that same tree, but it continues to zoom in a little bit more and a little bit more every single time that the page turns, until we're in the branches of the tree and we see there's a decapitated head of a child within those branches. Ben shuts the book and hears a music box playing, and he starts to follow the chimes deeper into the darker parts of the library.
Either these kids are like in a trance by all this, or they're just not very bright. Where's the fight or flight response here?
You know what? I was actually like, I always think that every single time I watch something like this. But then this morning, I was getting ready to go for my run, and I heard something happen upstairs, and I went to the stairs and I looked up and I was like, okay, I don't see anything. That's the extent of that.
Yeah. I like to think that I would be smart in these situations, but I think I'd be dumb too.
We all have that curious nature of us, right?
Yes.
So lights begin to flicker and disembodied voices begin to giggle. Just as Ben hears all of this, he comes to a staircase and sees that somebody is slowly coming down the stairs. He can't really see who it is until all of a sudden it gets almost to the bottom stair and he notices that it's a headless body. He is aghast, and just as he is paralyzed with fear for a moment, it suddenly takes chase and is very fast for a headless body.
Yes, it is. It's no like Michael Myers. It is like zooming. Like in a glitchy way too, which makes it like really creepy. Mm-hmm.
While in pursuit, the body transforms suddenly into Pennywise, but right as that happens, the librarian catches Ben and she unknowingly saves him, and then he bursts out of the library, only to run into another form of his nightmare, the bullies who have been tormenting him. So they begin to torment him. They call him Tits, and Henry begins to carve his name with a knife into Ben's stomach.
Of course, and this is all happening while adults drive by. They look and they do nothing, and they look the other way. I'm like, this was what, in the 80s? I feel like back then there was more sense of a community. I feel like now if this were to happen today, people would look the other way because nobody cares about their neighbors, all that. But back then, those were different times. Everybody was in everybody's business. So like for them to act like that, I find shocking.
Well, and I also wonder though, so as the car drives by, we see that there's a red balloon in the back seat, which is usually a reference to Pennywise. So I'm wondering if that was actually an illusion.
I guess.
Because there's nothing scarier than having something horrible happening to you and not being able to be helped. Seeing that people are standing by and not helping you.
Who knows?
So anyway, he successfully carves an H into Ben's stomach. And right as this happens, one of Henry's goons gets concerned and gives Ben enough time to headbutt Henry and flip over the railing. Not intentionally. They just shove him over the railing. But he tumbles down the hill and is starting to get away. The bullies then chase after him. Two of the bullies split up while Henry looks for his knife because he dropped his knife, and he says that if he can't find it, his dad will kill him. We cut to our four main boys. They're riding their bikes down to the Barrens, which apparently is the end of a sewer system at near the river.
I never got that. I'm like, what are the Barrens? They kept referencing them.
Yeah, I think it's just like a little lake area or a little river, like beach area.
It's like a little
something
stream area.
So they find the sewer pipe, and two of the three boys go in And Ed has absolutely no interest in going in there because it's gray water. He says that there's all this disease there. There's all just shit and piss in this thing. And we get the sense that Ed is a hypochondriac, but to be fair, with the mother that he has, that's not too far off. So while Bill is in there, he finds issue. All 4 of the boys stop dead in their tracks and they think, oh, is that Georgie's? And he looks at it and he says, no, Georgie only wore galoshes. It's Betty's, who's the girl who they were referring to earlier as missing. So Ed says that he's not going in there, but Bill says if it was him, he would want somebody to come and find him. So he wants to pursue forward. Stan takes a stand and says, it's summer. We're supposed to be having fun, and this isn't fun.
Yeah. I think it's something they're constantly saying. It's summer. We're supposed to be outside. We're supposed to be having fun.
And mind you, like, they literally just got out of school like 2 minutes ago. Like,
I know, yeah. You've got like what, 2-3 more months to go? Like,
right.
You'll be bored after a week.
Just as they're having this discussion, they hear splashing and see that Ben has ran towards them and tripped, and they see that he's cut and hurt. So they try and help him out. We cut to the yellow shirt goon, one of the 2 who was giving Ben chase, and he hears something in a different sewer drain. So he walks in thinking that it's Ben. And he's got, I don't know, it's some kind of aerosol can that he keeps putting
Aquanet.
lighter.
You never used Aquanet?
Oh, it's Aquanet? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was probably hairspray. I just didn't know which one it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Aquanet. I used that religiously. Oh my God. My hair. It was crisp, man.
Crunchy.
Yeah.
So inside the tunnel, Pennywise makes zombies essentially. And they say to Patrick, you found us. And all of a sudden, these zombies run after Patrick, and he runs further into the sewer system until he runs into a grate, and he turns around to see a red balloon has followed him. Just when the red balloon pops, Pennywise attacks. Patrick, the yellow shirt goon, is no longer.
And they hear him scream too, as they're like running away.
So we get back to our protagonists. They're riding their bikes back into town, talking about getting help for Ben. And here they have a conversation about AIDS because it was very timely in 1989 to be having that conversation. And Richie is an asshole, to say the least.
Yeah. He's a little punk. Yeah.
He is. Yeah. So the 3 boys run into the pharmacy while they charge Richie with staying behind with Ben. And they go to get supplies. However, they find out that they don't have enough money for it. They tell Ed, why don't you just put this on your account? And he says that if he puts this much stuff on his account, his mom's going to keep him in bed for weeks. She's going to think that there's something seriously wrong with him. So he's like, we can't do that. We then see Beverly in the next aisle or so trying to get some tampons when all of a sudden her bully comes in. And so she very sneakily runs to the next aisle to try and avoid her. And that's when she runs into the boys. They tell her that they are trying to get some supplies to help somebody, but they don't have any money. So she goes to the pharmacist and begins to distract him. She takes his glasses. She says that he looks very much like Clark Kent. She asks to try on his glasses. He says something about her looking like Lois Lane. And then...
It was so disturbing.
Right. I know.
I was so grossed out. I'm like... Ugh.
It is. It's very gross. And then she knocks one of the stands of items on the pharmacist's counter over. And so the pharmacist has to go and pick it up. And this is when the boys sneak out. Very loudly, might I add.
Right.
So back in the alley, the boys begin to bandage Ben up and hears something and goes out to the street and sees that Beverly is coming towards him. And that's when she sees that the hurt boy is Ben. So she comes over to him and checks on him and says, oh, are you all right? And they all play it off like, oh, yeah, no, we're cool. We're fine. And then Bill invites her to go to the quarry with them the next day. After they leave, they begin to talk about the rumors about Beverly. Everybody says that she's a slut and that she sleeps with any boy in town.
Like full-grown adults spreading rumors about what, a 13-year-old girl?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody, all of our protagonists are between like 12 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
So they have been
children,
spreading these
20.
rumors about her for years.
Oh my gosh.
So we cut to Beverly getting home, and she is stopped by her dad, and he asks her what she was doing and like what she's got. And he sees that she's got tampons, and he says, "Tell me you're still my little girl." And he smells her hair, and he's extremely creepy. And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I got the sense that he's sexually abusing her in some way.
Yeah. What is that? Like incest pedo vibes from this guy. Yeah. It's definitely, that's implied for sure.
And we never see a mom or anything like that. So we have no idea what happened to that. But she is terrified. So she goes into the bathroom and she's very upset. And she says, "This is all your fault," talking to herself in the mirror. And she cuts her hair until it's a short, messy bob.
Her bob that she cuts looks so cute on her. It suits her very well.
Cute. Much like when we were talking about Yentl.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who can cut their hair and just have it look so good. So we cut to the next day. The boys are standing in their underwear. And I'm pretty sure there's only one style of underwear in 1989 because they all are wearing the same style of underwear.
The same exact.
So there's, yep. They're standing on a cliff and they're spitting loogies, trying to figure out who's going to go first to jump off the cliff into the water. And that's when Beverly shows up and she says, "I'll do it." And she takes off her dress and runs and jumps off the cliff into the water. And the boys are like, "Oh, we can't be shown up by a girl." And so they all begin to follow. Then we get some scenes of them playing chicken and playing around in the water. We get some looks of Beverly and Bill checking each other out. And then after a little while, we cut to 6 of them on top of the cliff drying out. And Beverly's just sunbathing while all the boys stare.
Yeah. I'm sure this is like their first time seeing a girl in her undergarments. So they're probably just like in awe.
So then the boys start to go through Ben's bag and they see that he's been doing a lot of research at the library. And he says that people in Derry go missing or die 6 times higher than the national average. And it gets worse for children. So they all go to his place where he shows them more of the research he has. He's got all these newspaper clippings taped to his wall. He's also got the charter taped up to his wall. And they say that he's really lame for doing that. But he says, no, it's actually very interesting because everybody who signed this town charter vanished by that winter, leaving absolutely no trace of who they were or where they went.
So, like, why would anyone want to move there?
I don't know. It reminds me of Roanoke. So they find his projector slides too. And then we cut to Ed walking home after all of this. He is walking down the street until he comes to a very creepy, disheveled house. His watch starts to beep, which this is something that happens throughout the movie as well. He has specific medications that he's supposed to take at specific times. So his watch beeps to remind him to take some medication. And just then the door cracks open a little bit. And we hear a voice say, "Eddie, what are you looking for?" He drops the pill onto the ground and begins to looking for it when a leper hand picks it up.
He drops like a ton of pills.
Oh, I thought he just dropped
a whole case of pills, and he's trying to pick them up. He's carrying. What does he carry? What are those like little pill
fanny pack? He's got like 2 fanny packs, is what he says earlier.
He has a fanny pack full of like a bunch of pills that he ends up dropping.
Pill cases, yep.
Yep.
So behind the leper hand is a full-blown leper, and it begins to chase him. He runs behind the house, the creepy, disheveled house, and he looks back because he's pinned up against a fence, and he sees a tower of red balloons. And as they all float away, we see Pennywise. Pennywise says, "Come to me. You'll float down there. We all float down there." And here's where Ed gets away. So we haven't really talked too much about Pennywise yet, but we've all kind of seen a lot of Pennywise memes and adaptations on the internet. But Pennywise in this film of It is very white. His clothes are white. His face is white. He has red hair and then red smile that goes up through his eyes is the makeup that's put on him. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, he's mostly just one tone. There's not a whole lot of color to him.
Yeah.
So when we think about It from the 1990s, Tim Curry's It was very colorful. Yeah. Tim Curry's It had yellow and purple and blue and green and red. And
it was more like of a classical, like a take on of a classical clown that we're
right, exactly. And part of that was intentional. The idea of Pennywise in the 1990s miniseries of It was something that could actually be real, but then make it scary.
Yeah.
Whereas this version of Pennywise is very white, very plain, but a more obviously terrifying clown, if you will. Okay. So where was I? Oh, so we cut to Beverly getting home, and she finds Ben's love postcard, and she shuts herself in the bathroom to read it. She's very charmed by this and smitten. She reads it aloud. She has a smile, and she brings it close to her chest to hold it dearly, when all of a sudden she starts to hear her name being called from the sink. And a disembodied voice asks for help. All of a sudden, we hear the names of all the missing kids, and they say, "We all float down here." Then she goes into the living room where her dad is asleep in front of the TV and grabs the tape measure. She heads back into the bathroom and starts to measure how far down the sink goes. It's not very far, but as she begins to pull the measuring tape back up, there's blood and hair on the end of it. Suddenly, the strands of hair grab her wrists and then grab her face and pull her toward the drain. And screaming, and then suddenly we see blood begin to bubble up the sink and gush into a fountain of blood that puts Nightmare on Elm Street to shame.
Yeah.
The strands let go of her and she falls to the ground screaming, and everything is covered in blood in that bathroom. Literally every single inch of that. And her dad comes in. He's like, "What's going on? What is happening in here?" And he clearly does not see any of the blood. She tries to explain, very scared, that there's blood everywhere. And he says, "You worry me, baby." And then he says, "What happened to your hair? Short hair makes you look like a boy." And he just leaves the bathroom while she's traumatized and terrified in the corner of the bathroom. Bill gets home, and we see that a bedroom light turns on. This was Georgie's bedroom. He sits on Georgie's bed, and outside we see a shadow shaped like a little boy walk past. Bill heads to the kitchen, and then all of a sudden Georgie runs past him. Bill follows him to the place where only good things happen, the basement. Georgie keeps telling Bill that if he goes to find Georgie, he'll float too. Slowly, Georgie begins to transform in voice and in appearance into Pennywise. And it chases after Bill. But he gets away. We cut back to Beverly coming down her fire escape, and we find out that she meets up with the boys because she's called them, saying that she needs to show them something. They leave Richie behind to keep watch in the case that her father comes home, because she says that he'll kill her if he knows that she's invited boys over. And so Richie's like, what am I supposed to do if he comes home? And they're like, do what you do best, talk. And he's like, it is a gift. So they head to the bathroom and all the boys see that it's completely covered in blood. And she's like, you see it too? Okay, good. I thought I was losing my mind. And they all get to work cleaning up this bathroom. And side note, like, I've never seen so many boys clean a bathroom.
I was thinking, like, what a nice group of boys. When do we ever see boys, period, but young boys clean up? Like,
nonetheless, a bathroom. Like, a boy's bathroom is notoriously disgusting.
Yes, it is. Ugh, so gross.
So after the bathroom's completely cleaned, the only people left in the bathroom are Bill and Beverly, and they are chatting, they're flirting, and she tells him, oh, the rumors about me are not true. I've only ever kissed one guy, and it was a good kiss, but that was it. And then she says one of the lines of the poem, thinking that he's the one who gave her the card, but he's completely clueless, and he tells her that he's not really into poetry, but that he also never believed in the rumors anyway.
Early on, I think it was mentioned that Bill and Beverly were in a play together when they were younger. And they kissed in the play. And so I think that's what she was referencing. When she
No,
said,
I think that was Henry. Because they said that, they said that in the play, her and Henry kissed and you couldn't make up that passion. And that's how everybody knew that she slept with him.
Oh, I thought it was Bill. Okay. Never mind then. Why would you say that then? It was a pretty good kiss. Okay, well.
Well, we don't know who she kissed. We don't know if it was Henry or not, but it could have just been some other boy, you know, who she actually like had feelings for and kissed. But
I thought she was just referencing to the play she did.
I hadn't thought about that, but you could be right.
Okay.
Just because somebody's a jerk doesn't mean they don't know how to kiss. I don't know.
I know, technically, right?
Like, I've kissed a lot of jerks. They still can be very good at kissing.
Right?
Not so good in any other way. So Bill then tells her she's part of the loser club now, which is what they call themselves. So all of them head back and they confirm that all of them have been seeing things. And Richie then says, can only virgins see this? Because I haven't seen anything. So they're all talking about having seen different kinds of scenarios of things that they're terrified about, but most importantly, everything comes down to a clown. They then see that Mike is getting tormented by Henry and his goons. So Mike looks into the grass while he's on the ground and he sees Pennywise. He's got a torn off arm and he's waving it at him. And just as Henry is struggling with Mike to get him to, I think they're trying to get him to eat raw meat. I couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah. All of his meat was on the floor and they were like smashing his head into it, it looked like.
Yeah. So then Mike and Henry start to brawl on the ground. And just then Beverly comes in. She throws a rock at Henry's head. Now, there is a stream in between the two sides. And they begin to take part in what they call a rock war. Where we have the bullies on one side and we have our losers club on the other side. And they're throwing some of the biggest rocks I've ever seen.
I know. Oh my God. But what was it? Who called Rock War?
I think it was Ed.
Ed, yeah. He's just like, Rock War. We get a close up of his head and then someone just like chucks a rock at his head. Like knocks them out.
Oh my gosh. I watched this and I was like, oh, good Lord. Somebody's going to die. Somebody's going to like hit their head and bleed out. Like, but ultimately our protagonists win and the bullies run away and they are able to pull Mike back up with them and welcome him to the Losers Club. So now we're at a grand total of 7 protagonists in the Losers Club. As they're walking around town, they see the missing signs of all the kids. And Bill asks if it'll ever end. This is where Ben chimes in and says, I think it will, at least for a while. And he says that this kind of stuff seems to happen every 27 years. And they're on a bench and they're talking about this. And I think it's Stan who says, so it's like cicadas who come out every 17 years. And Ben's like, yeah, I think so, because it seems like every 27 years for 1 year, all the children start to go missing. And then it's quiet for the next 27 years.
It's like Jeepers Creepers.
Exactly. How many years was that one? I think it was 22 or 23 years. I think it was 23 years because it was a weird number.
It was close.
So Mike tells the gang that his grandpa thinks this town is cursed. And they say that it all can't be the same thing. And Mike says, maybe what it is, it's turning into what we're scared of most. And Stan is in denial. And he says, how? This isn't real. And Mike tells him, I know the difference between a bad dream and real life. And he explains that the way that he came to be where he is, that house that burnt down in the town, that was his house. He was inside that house when it burnt down. And he had come to, and he heard his parents screaming in the fire, and they were in a different room. He tried to help them out, but he couldn't. And so when the firefighters came, they got him out. But then when they went back for his parents, they were so burnt that their skin was melting off their bones. So we get to know some of his trauma. Eddie asks Richie, what are you most afraid of? And Richie looks behind him where there's a festival or a fair going on, and he sees, and he says, clowns.
Of course. Who isn't scared of clowns? Are you scared of clowns?
No, not really.
Okay. Are you scared of anything?
They don't really scare me. Yes.
Like physical?
I'm scared of many things.
Okay.
But yeah. I'm mostly scared of like disappointing people and
oh yeah, I know, that's why I said something concrete. Not
yeah.
I'm sure that
I'm like, I'm not sure what the manifestation would look like in that.
I know. Or like worst nightmare be some sort of modern problems dealing with mental health.
I don't know. I used to have this like reoccurring nightmare that something was chasing me. I never saw it, never knew what it was. I just had the sense that something was chasing me.
Are you someone who believes that like dreams have meanings, like specifically reoccurring dreams?
I try not to because all of my dreams are terrifying. Oh. So
it would make sense that you do if you're someone who's into astrology.
I used to try and look up what dreams meant, but like I said, they're all just so terrifying that I'm like, nope,
like,
I don't want to believe it.
Want to believe.
Yeah. Like I've had lots of dreams of like family and loved ones dying and being murdered and people chasing me and trying to murder me and like all these things.
I remember I read somewhere that dreams where like your teeth fall out mean like someone's gonna die or something like that. And I've had
I've heard
dreams like where your teeth are falling out.
No, I've never had any of those. Yeah. I just have weird dreams. I don't know what to say. So now we're back at Bill's house in his garage, and he's got a map of Derry projected over a map of the sewer systems. And we're starting to realize that it's all connected. All the sewers are connected at the well house. This is the previously mentioned creepy, disheveled house. So Ed says, that's where I saw it. And now they all start to referring to Pennywise as it. Ed begins to panic. He's having a full-fledged panic attack. Asthma's creeping up and everything. And he's just saying, we got to get the fuck out of here. And all of a sudden, the projector that they're using starts to switch slides on its own. And it's a bunch of pictures of Bill's family. And we come to this one photo of Bill's family, and the projector continues to flick picture after picture, zooming further and further into this picture until his mom, who's in the picture, then transforms into Pennywise. They kick the projector over, and the slides just show Pennywise kind of disheveled until he pops out of the projector, coming after them. He's coming after Beverly specifically, and then the other boys roll up the garage door, and just as they do, Pennywise is gone.
So I heard in an interview, I think it was, that scene was the first time that they saw Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise.
Really?
Yeah. So they had no idea what he looked like. And so they wanted to have like that authentic, like fear factor. And so that was the first time they saw him, which would be terrifying.
In the drama series, in the miniseries, they have something similar with Pennywise where I think they're looking in a book and they're looking at an old timey picture, and Pennywise is the only thing that comes alive in that photo. And he's like walking around, making fun on the street. And then he climbs up on the street lamp and he's talking to them and he goes to reach out to them. And I think they close the book, but it reminds me of that.
Oh, wow.
So Beverly, because she's been terrified, she goes over to the boys. She puts a hand on Ben and then she goes and she hugs Bill for comfort.
Meanwhile, like this whole time, of course, Ben has a crush on Beverly.
Yeah.
But it's been Bill and Beverly that have been sharing like these little moments together, and he's been witnessing all of it. Poor guy.
Poor Ben. So Bill then says, let's go. We have to go to Nebolt? I can't remember what I spelled. Nebolt. Let's go to Nebolt. I'm going to go with that.
I don't know what that is. I'm just going to go with it.
Nebolt. I think it was Nebolt. I don't know. So the rest of them are extremely apprehensive. So Bill says, well, fuck it. I'm going on my own then. And so he gets on his bike and he heads down the street. He gets to Well House and walks slowly up the pathway to the door. All of a sudden, the rest of them have come up behind him and they say that he can't do this alone. They're trying to convince him not to do it at all. And he stands there and tells them that he can't just stand by and pretend that nothing is happening. Doing this is so much easier than being home because being home is so much harder since Georgie's been gone. So they ask who wants to stay outside, and all the boys raise their hand, but Beverly does not. And then somehow, some way, the only people who end up going inside are Bill, Richie, and Ed. No idea why.
Mention that they pulled sticks?
They pulled straws or something like that.
Yeah. He's like, of course I had to pull the short straw. Yeah. But also, when Bill gives his like little speech, Ed is like, whoa. And Beverly's like, what? And he's like, he didn't stutter once. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. So they go inside the house to investigate. Richie finds a missing poster of him, and it's got the exact outfit that he's wearing that day on. And he starts to freak the fuck out. He is panicking. And this is when Bill comes up to him and says, it's not real. This thing only has power if you think it's real, and this is not real. And so the three of them start to head upstairs because they hear cries for help. They see down the hallway, a door is open and a girl is coughing on the ground. And they're like, oh, it's Betty, one of the missing girls. And all of a sudden she is dragged away and is screaming. The boys start to walk forward to try and investigate, but Ed starts to hear a disembodied voice behind him calling his name, and he is separated from the other two while they continue to the room that Betty was in. Richie and Bill get into the room and they see that Betty is nowhere to be found. And all of a sudden, the door slams behind them, separating Ed from Bill and Richie. Ed runs to them, and before he can get to the door, the floor of the second floor has disintegrated, and the leper is behind him, puts a hand on Eddie's shoulder, and Eddie turns around and just falls backwards through the floor to the kitchen area and lands straight on a table.
How does that not kill him?
I don't know. I think because it was only like 10 feet. Like you can fall a specific amount and not die. So Richie hears a voice while they go to find Eddie and is also separated into another room. In this room, it's completely filled with clowns. So Richie is like, fuck, really? It's got to be clowns? But he decides to get a little brave, and he goes up towards some of the clowns, and he puts his hand on its face and is like, oh, it's not real. Okay. So these are all like dolls or statues or figures or something, but they're all fake. And he calms down quite a bit. Ironically enough, like, he doesn't actually seem all that terrified of clowns for somebody who says that he's terrified of clowns.
Yeah.
Well. So there is a chest that appears in the middle of the room, and he walks towards it, and then he sees his missing poster again. He opens the chest. It's like a coffin. Yeah. It looks so much taller than a coffin. Like, it looks like a chest shaped like a coffin.
Oh, yeah. Maybe it was like resting on something.
It might have been. It very well could have been. So inside is a fake, like, wax dead version of him with like all these sores on his face and everything. So he's fed up with this, and he slams the lid. And right after that, the lid flies open and Pennywise pops out on top of the coffin and chases Richie out of the room. So Richie, of course, takes off and gets to the door, and luckily it's able to open, and this is where he finds Bill. We cut to Ed, who has fallen from the second floor to the first floor, and he wakes up and sees that he has broken his arm.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense break.
Yeah.
So we see then that he is he's looking towards a refrigerator, like an ice box. And he sees a hand start to come out of the sides of the door. And the door flies open, and we see Pennywise completely contorted into this ice box. He uncontorts and starts walking very slowly towards Eddie, because obviously Eddie's not going anywhere. Yeah. And he's telling him the whole time to float. And he's moving his arms side to side very dramatically and very intentionally. And we hear Ed from downstairs while we're with Richie and Bill. And they're facing 3 doors. There's a door that says not very scary. The middle door says scary. And then the last door says very scary. So they obviously go towards the not very scary. And as they open up the door, they find Betty inside this closet area. And she says, "What happened to my shoes?" And begins to scream as we realize that her bottom half has been completely eaten or separated off. So they slam the door.
And she's like, "This is what happened to her bottom half? Or what happened to her legs?" Like, what happened to her legs? Asking.
It's like, I don't think we have time for that right now.
We have bigger concerns. Yeah.
So they slam the door, and Bill reminds themselves that this isn't real. They take a deep breath, and they open the door again, and they successfully get out. So they get to the kitchen where Ed is, and before he's consumed, Pennywise turns and is completely annoyed and says, "Is this not scary enough for you? Is this not real enough for you?" So just as Pennywise begins to lunge at Ed, Beverly comes in right at the right time and comes in at the right time and stabs him through the head with some kind of, I don't know what to call it.
It looks like a metal spear, but it looks like it's like from like the fence.
Ah, there you go.
That had fallen off maybe or broken off. Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like.
So Pennywise is momentarily defeated and goes away. And then they all run to Eddie. I can't remember which one snaps his arm back into place.
I think it's Richie. It seems like something he would do.
Right? I thought it was Stan. It was one of them. Yeah. But he's like, "Don't fucking touch me."
When Billy and I were watching it, where he's like, "I don't think that's how that works." Because where he broke it was like right in between the elbow and the wrist. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't think that can snap back together.
No, I do not think so. Like, you do that for like a dislocated shoulder. You don't do that for a break.
They tried.
So they all run from the house. And now that they're in safety, we cut to Ed's mom picking him up and blaming them all for Ed's broken arm and saying that they're no longer allowed to hang out with her son. And she drives off. She also makes a point to say to Beverly, I've heard about you, and I don't want your dirty hands touching my son.
Oh, man.
So, very disappointing.
What a bitch.
Bill says that he saw the well at Nabal House, and he says that next time they'll be much better prepared, but the rest of the boys scream no. They're too scared to die, and this is when Richie and Bill get into a fist fight. Beverly tells them to stop and that this is exactly what it wants. It wants to divide them. And while they've just had this harrowing experience, they've all decided to go their separate ways and completely disband for the rest of the summer. Mike says, I can't do this. I'm an outsider. I got to stay that way. So we get little vignettes of each of our protagonists continuing on with their lives until all of a sudden we see on screen August. We see Henry and his goons doing target practice with Henry's dad's gun. And he then tells one of his goons to go get that stray cat and hold it so he can shoot it. This is when Henry's dad comes out, luckily enough for the cat, and asks what the hell is going on. And Henry tells him, oh, I was just cleaning your gun. And he's like, cleaning my gun, huh? And so he takes his gun back and shoots at Henry's feet. And this is absolutely terrifying to Henry. And his dad says, look at him crumble now.
Wait, so like, I always wondered, what happens if you shoot at the floor? Doesn't the bullet have to go somewhere?
Yeah, it goes into the ground.
It does? It doesn't like bounce?
It goes straight through.
Really?
They were on dirt, so it just went into the ground.
Oh, okay. I guess.
So we cut to Ed at the pharmacy, and he's asking the pharmacist for his medications. And one of the girls there tells him that his medication is bullshit. It's a placebo. And he's like, what? This is where he starts to realize that he's not actually sick and that his mom's just been telling him this for years. She then signs his cast. I'm pretty sure she writes loser on there, but later on it'll say like the S will be covered with a V in like red Sharpie or something.
Yep.
To say lover. So we cut back to Henry, and he's obviously very upset at what just happened. And his friends are like, is there anything we can do? We're so sorry. Like, these are actually like caring friends. Henry completely disregards them as he hears laughter and he walks towards it. There's a red balloon on the mailbox, and he opens up the mailbox to find a package. Inside the package is the knife that he lost in the woods. Now, this knife has like a little button that projects the blade out of it. So he takes this knife and he goes inside. He sees that his dad has fallen asleep in front of the TV. And all of a sudden, this is like a kid's TV program. But the TV program tells Henry, kill him, kill him, kill him. And Henry then takes the knife, puts the hilt of it against his dad's neck, and presses the button to stab his dad in the jugular. So the kids on the TV are cheering, kill them all, kill them all, kill them all. And we see Pennywise grin behind the kids. We cut back to Beverly. She's walking to the front door and then notices that it's been padlocked. Her dad sneaks up behind her and asks where she's sneaking off to, and she tells him nowhere. He says that he worries about her, that people in town have been telling him that she's been going around with a pack of boys, and she tries to tell him they're just friends, and he shows her that he found her love letter and asks, are you still my girl? And she says, no. He then attacks her and gets her to the ground. And as she's struggling and screaming, she knees him in the balls and kicks him in the face. She runs to the bathroom and she locks the door, but he gets in and he can't find her, and then pulls the shower curtain back where he finds her, but she slams his head with the toilet tank lid. He collapses to the ground and is bleeding all over the floor, and she is finally feeling relieved. And right as she's about to leave, Pennywise shows up and takes her. Bill has headed to Beverly's house for some reason and sees that something's not right. He heads inside and finds her dad on the floor and a note written in blood on the wall that says, "You'll die if you try." Here, he runs to Richie in the arcade. He runs as fast as he can. And he says, "It's got Beverly." So they call Eddie on the phone and he says that he'll meet them there. But his mom says that, "You can't go. You're sick. You can't go." And he says, "I know that these are all just placebos." Well, actually, he says gazebos.
Gazebos. Yeah. He's like, "I know about the gazebos."
He says his friends were the only people who have ever tried to protect him, and she made him cut them out. So he's going, and so he leaves the house. We now see all of the boys riding their bikes to the well house, and they all have various potential weapons with them. So Mike has the bolt gun with him. They have a couple of bats. And unbeknownst to them, Henry is waiting outside as they reach the well house. They all go inside, but Stan doesn't want to, but they convince him because they all have to go. They're only strong enough to beat it if they all go. From there, they head to the basement where the well is. They drop a rope down and begin to rappel to a tunnel that is about 10 feet down, one by one. Then we see Beverly waking up in a dark underground cavern. She's struggling to stand and walk, but then she looks up and sees all of the missing children who've been taken around town, suspended in the air in a spiral. She finally gets with it enough to run. She tries to open a door when all of a sudden she hears Pennywise. She turns around and it's one of those like old school circus like stages.
Yeah, he puts on a show for her. I said he puts on a little show for her.
Oh, yeah. He begins to quote unquote dance. And then as she starts to run, he leaps and grabs her. He begins to choke her and lift her up into the sky. And she says, "I'm not afraid of you." Of course, he's extremely annoyed at this. And he says, "You will be." And he retracts his jaw like a python, or what I thought of, Barbara from Beetlejuice. And inside his throat, we can see 3 glowing orbs. As Beverly's staring into this, we see her eyes glaze over and she floats up like Max in Stranger Things in season 4. So I think this is where they got some of that inspiration. Henry comes up behind Mike, and Mike is the last person at the top of the well. And he hits Mike over the top of the head and cuts the rope down. Henry then attacks Mike, and Mike eventually gets the upper hand, and he beats him with a rock and then shoulder drives him down into the well. As Henry falls down the well, he's breaking everything on the way down.
Yep. Hitting just back and forth, bouncing like a little ping pong ball. But I feel like, so when he comes up from behind Mike and knocks him out and takes the rope, I thought he was going to cut the rope. I feel like that would have made more sense.
Did he not?
No, he didn't. He just pulled it up because that's how Mike got down.
Oh,
yeah,
I was always trying to figure out how Mike got down there.
Yeah. No, he only pulls the rope up.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
That makes a whole lot more sense.
But I feel like it would make more sense if he cut it.
Yeah.
So that way, no chances of getting back up.
So as this is all happening, the boys in the tunnel are trying to get Mike help from their very...
They could do nothing, though. There was literally nothing for them to do other than just shout, "Mike! Mike!"
Right. Exactly. But while they're screaming, Stan is the other boys all of a sudden after Henry goes down the well, notice that Stan is gone and they begin looking for him. In the dark of the tunnel, the weird painting lady comes running at Stan. And that's when they hear Stan scream and run towards him. They find him on the ground with his face being sucked on by the painting lady.
Literally sucking his entire face.
Literally, it's like its mouth is so big it covers his entire face. So once all the boys are there, it retreats and Stan is somehow alive and screams at them, "You left me!" Very reminiscent of Jurassic Park. He left us. He left us.
Yeah. At this point, I feel like they should have like tied themselves to each other.
Right.
Like, that way nobody could get lost. No one can get separated.
Just have ropes around their midsections, just tied to the next person. So Bill then separates from the group as if we haven't had enough problems with them being separated.
Oh my gosh, I know.
And heads into the tunnels. He finds the center where Beverly is floating in the air. He tries to jump and grab her feet, but he can't quite reach her. And then he hears giggling and begins to investigate. The rest of the boys then begin to look for Bill, and Ed drops his flashlight into the water. When he starts looking for it, dead bodies start to pop up, and these look like leper bodies, which is what he's most afraid of. So they all start running. Eventually, they also find Beverly and all of the other missing kids, but they don't see Bill anywhere immediately. So their immediate thing that they're focused on is getting Beverly down. So they stack up on top of each other, and Ben grabs her feet to pull her down. Once he's got her on the ground, she's still not awake, and he doesn't know what's wrong with her. So he Snow Whites her. He kisses her out of her slumber, her dead slumber, and she gasps awake.
At first, like, nothing happens. And so you feel bad for him. You're like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing.
So they all hug each other now. Glad to see each other. Glad to see that everybody's, for the most part, safe. But then we cut back to Bill, and he sees Georgie with one arm. And Georgie asks, what took so long? And Bill says, I couldn't find my way out here. And the other kids then find Bill and Georgie. Georgie is pleading with Bill, take me home. I miss you. And Bill says, I want more than anything to have that happen. And I miss you so much. But Bill takes the bolt gun and puts it to Georgie's head and says, I'd love to, but you're not Georgie. And he shoots Georgie in the head. And Georgie collapses backwards. His body lies still there for a moment, but then all of a sudden it begins to quake and scream and transform into Pennywise, like the Thing from The Thing.
I don't think I've seen that thing. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. So, like, tentacles start to come out of his arms and legs, and he starts to transform into a mini Pennywise, and then his arms grow and his feet grow, and then his head transforms, and now we have Pennywise. What I don't understand is Pennywise is coming after Bill, and it takes like several moments for Bill to like oof.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So he goes to shoot Pennywise with the bolt gun, and Mike's like, it's not loaded, it's not loaded. And somehow, I don't know what happened exactly, but Bill does shoot him, and there's a hole in Pennywise's skull.
I think it was like a joke on Pennywise.
Is that okay?
That's what I
wasn't
thought,
sure
because nothing came out, and so like,
yeah,
he was like, "Oh, you got me." Like, I don't know. That's how I perceived it.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. So then it charges Bill, and we have a battle between the kids and it happen. It grabs a hold of Bill, gives them a choice. I'll eat all of you, or you can just leave Bill, and then I'll go to sleep, and you all can live long lives. Bill is encouraging them all to leave and apologizes for dragging them all into this. And this is where Richie stands up and says, I told you, I didn't want to die. You made me do this. We had to experience all of this. And now I'm going to have to kill this clown. So they all take turns swinging at it. It transforms part of it into various fear forms that we've seen throughout the movie. So like we see the painting lady's face, we see the leper's face, we see him continue to transform, but they continue to attack it. But it's obviously 7 against 1. The last thing that it turns into is Beverly's dad. And Beverly's dad's face says, you're still my girl, aren't you? And then she stabs him down the throat. Much deserved. It starts to shake and quake. And Bill says, you're the one who's afraid now, as he retreats against another well. And he says, you're afraid now because you're going to starve. It flips into the well, holding on to the edges, and it begins to slowly disintegrate before it drops into the darkness of the tunnel. They all relax a bit and see that the kids who were floating up in the air begin to slowly float down to the ground. In the pile of, I don't know, tokens, memorabilia from all these kids, Bill finds Georgie's raincoat and they all sob and cry and hug together.
It was literally a mountain.
There's a mountain.
A mountain of random stuff.
Random kid stuff. So we fade to September. All of the 7 of the Losers Club are near a lake, and Beverly tells the group that she had a dream about all of them, older, and they were still so afraid. She doesn't really know what happened, but she remembers the feeling and that they were all back to where they are now. Bill stands up and says, "We have to swear that if it comes back, we'll come back too." And they all stand up and begin to take a blood oath. They grab a random piece of glass, which is not safe.
Very unsanitary.
And bring out their hands as Bill comes around to each one of them, cutting their hands, and they hold hands into a circle. Which I don't really get, because like they cut hands and then they would hold the hand of the hand that wasn't cut, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So they were just like bleeding all over each other. So Stan says that he has to go, and then he looks at Bill and says, "I hate you." Then he smiles and they all laugh and begin to go their separate ways. But Bill and Beverly are left behind. Beverly tells Bill that she's going to go live with her aunt. And she explains that she never felt like a loser when she was with all of them. She gets up and leaves, and Bill watches her go, but then quickly gets up and runs to her. They kiss, and she says bye, leaving a bloody handprint on his face. It fades to black, and we see It, Chapter 1, the end.
Yay!
As far as the Bechdel test is concerned, I'm going to say it does not pass.
Wait, does that one chick, does the bully chick have a name?
I don't think so. I tried finding her name and I couldn't find it.
Okay, because that's the only way I would think it could pass.
I know. That was the only thing that I could think of too.
No. Because I was thinking, what's his face's mom?
Yeah. But I don't think Beverly responds to her.
I don't think she does either. Yeah. So no, it didn't.
Yeah. It does not pass. Some fun trivia. So Pennywise actually only had 4 minutes of dialogue in the entire movie. So even less than Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
I wouldn't know.
So Anthony Hopkins, I believe, won Best Supporting Actor for Silence of the Lambs, even though he only had like 22 minutes of screen time.
Wow.
Some of the lines of dialogue were improvised by the actors. Mostly Richie and Eddie's banter was improv. So
I didn't see that.
He would make commentary about his dick and like having sex and so on and so forth. And I can definitely see like all of this just being improv of a 12 to 13-year-old. So the teeth prosthetics that Bill Skarsgård wore as Pennywise made him drool profusely. And then our director, Andy Muschietti, liked this as the drooling added to the ravenous nature of Pennywise, so he left it in. In preparing for the role of Pennywise, Bill Skarsgård did some research into the Psycho universe to find his own way to perform Pennywise. He got inspiration from The Shining, A Clockwork Orange, The Dark Knight, and then Silence of the Lambs. And Bill Skarsgård actually was able to smile in such a weird way that it really intrigued Andy Muschietti, and now it's Pennywise's iconic smile. He said that he had originally developed the smile when he was a child because he was trying to scare his brothers. So, on our caffeine scale, how do you rank this? 1 to 5 espresso shots.
I'm going to give it a 5. Because
very nice.
I know, even though I'm not like a massive horror fan, I feel like I can still acknowledge. I still found this movie enjoyable. And I think the casting was great. It was funny. It was terrifying. So it's going to get a solid 5 for me. And
yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's a good 5 movie because like this was like the first time that I had watched it, but it's still captivating. Like you're not quite sure what's happening at any turn. I think it's a good adaptation of the story of it. And it just keeps you wondering and guessing and with it the whole time. Like you're not bored at any point.
Especially for it being, I don't know, technically, but like a remake. And those don't tend to get a good rep. Usually.
Yeah. I usually hate remakes.
Yeah.
But I thought
most people
this was
do.
a good one.
So.
Because they're not good. But yeah, so that concludes our horror movie month.
Thanks goodness. What was that?
But we all hope that you have enjoyed our October.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Caffeinated Flicks. We're a self-published podcast produced and edited by Kenzie.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what films you'd like us to cover, what we can do better, or just say hi.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can follow us on Instagram at caffeinatedflickspod or email us at caffeinatedflicks@gmail.com. We'll catch you on the flick side.